2 million people died fighting over one city. 250,000 Japanese soldiers starved to death on a single island. Every one of these battles actually happened during the Second World War, and then somebody turned each one into a movie. September 1st, 1939. Germany invaded Poland and kicked off the war in Europe. Poland was stuck between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, and both of them wanted to carve up the country. Germany came in fast and brutal. The Polish army had about 200,000 casualties. The Germans lost around 50,000. It was a slaughter. Lotna came out in 1959, made by Polish filmmakers who wanted to show what that invasion meant for their country. The film follows a cavalry horse named Lotna as she's passed from soldier to soldier during the fighting. Her original owner gives her up because he can't take her into battle, and from there she becomes a witness to the entire invasion. You see the Polish forces getting overrun, soldiers making impossible choices, people sacrificing everything as their country gets torn apart. The horse survives encounters that kill the men around her, and each new rider represents another piece of Poland's defense falling apart. Luzon is the biggest island in the Philippines. When the U.S. came to take it back from the Japanese in 1945, about 275,000 Japanese soldiers were defending it. Roughly 206,000 of them died, and most didn't die from combat. They died from disease and starvation because the U.S. had them blockaded and they refused to surrender. The Americans lost about 8,000 killed and 30,000 wounded. The Japanese just wouldn't quit, even when they were starving to death in the jungle. Fires on the Plain shows what happened to those Japanese soldiers. The film follows a guy who gets told he's useless to his unit. They basically tell him to go get medical treatment or kill himself because they can't afford to keep him around. He survives and ends up wandering through the jungle watching the Japanese defense completely collapse. Soldiers are dying from hunger and disease everywhere. The film shows them breaking down morally as they resort to cannibalism to stay alive. When it came out in Japan, some people called it traitorous because it showed Japanese soldiers in such a desperate, degrading state. But that's what the Battle of Luzon did to the defenders. Spring 1945, the Soviet army was closing in on Berlin and the Nazi leaders knew the war was over. But they ordered a desperate defense of the capital anyway. They threw everyone they could find into the fight. Old men, teenagers, whoever would hold a gun. About 100,000 Germans died defending Berlin. Nearly as many Soviets died taking it, with 500,000 wounded between both sides. Downfall takes place almost entirely in Hitler's bunker during those final days. You see the Nazi leadership falling apart underground while the battle rages above them. The film shows Hitler ordering phantom armies to relieve the city, screaming at generals about divisions that no longer exist. Meanwhile, outside the Soviets are grinding through the last desperate defenses block by block. Late 1941, Nazi Germany was pushing toward Moscow and it looked like the Soviet Union might fall. The Soviets threw everything they had into defending the capital and managed to not just hold the line but push the Germans back. The casualties were massive. Estimates range from 1 to 1.5 million killed and wounded on both sides, though some historians think it was lower. Panfilov's 28 Men is based on a famous Soviet war story about 28 soldiers from a local guard unit who held off a massive German advance. According to the story, they sacrificed themselves to delay the Germans long enough for Soviet reinforcements to arrive and turn the tide. The movie plays it as this heroic last stand, the 28 men against tanks in overwhelming numbers, buying time with their lives. Whether it actually happened exactly that way is questionable since it was Soviet propaganda, but the film treats it like historical fact and makes it into an intense action movie about the defense of Moscow. December 7, 1941. Japan launched a surprise attack on the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. Less than 5,000 killed and wounded total, which seems small compared to the Eastern Front battles, but the consequences were enormous. Japan won the battle. They crippled a huge chunk of the American fleet in one morning. But that attack brought the United States into the war, which ultimately led to Japan's defeat. Tora was a joint U.S.-Japanese production from 1970, with both countries working together to recreate the attack as accurately as possible. The film shows both sides, the Japanese planning and executing the attack, and the Americans getting caught completely off guard. You see the Japanese pilots taking off from their carriers, the bombs dropping on Battleship Row, the chaos as the base realizes what's happening. It's not taking one side or the other, it's just showing how the attack unfolded from both perspectives. For a war movie made by both sides of the actual conflict, that's pretty unusual. Britain and France declared war on Germany after Hitler invaded Poland. Then nothing happened for months. When Germany finally moved west, they crushed the French and British forces. About 350,000 Allied troops were killed or wounded. Nearly 340,000 soldiers got trapped at this port town called Dunkirk on the French coast. They managed to evacuate most of them across the English Channel using every boat they could find: military ships, fishing boats, private yachts, whatever could float. Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk shows that evacuation using 3 different timelines. One follows the guys on the beach, one follows a boat crossing the channel, one follows Royal Air Force pilots in the air. They all move at different speeds and eventually come together. It's chaotic and you're never quite sure what's happening when, which is kind of the point. Fall of 1940. France had surrendered, the Soviet Union was allied with Germany, and Britain was alone. For more than 3 months, Nazi planes bombed British cities trying to force a surrender. Over 30,000 civilians died. The Royal Air Force kept fighting back. Eventually, they held off the attacks long enough that Hitler gave up and looked elsewhere. The 1969 film Battle of Britain has Michael Caine and Laurence Olivier, and it recreates the air battles over England. For the time, the effects were solid. Lots of dogfights, lots of planes getting shot down, showing how close Britain came to getting invaded. Six months after Pearl Harbor, Japan wanted to finish off the U.S. carrier fleet. Their plan was to lure American carriers into a trap at Midway and destroy them. The U.S. figured out the plan and turned the trap around. In one battle, they sank 4 Japanese carriers. That was a massive blow. Japan lost about 2,500 sailors and aircrew, but more importantly, they lost a huge chunk of their carrier strength. After Midway, Japan never really dominated the Pacific again. The 1976 film Midway used models and live action to recreate the battle. For the 70s, the effects were pretty good, and the movie shows how one battle completely shifted the war in the Pacific. By 1944, the Allies needed to invade France to open up a Western front against Germany. D-Day was the operation, landing over 150,000 troops on the beaches of Normandy. Saving Private Ryan's opening scene is famous. The beach landing at Omaha Beach. It's 20-some minutes of pure chaos. Guys getting shot the second the landing craft doors open, explosions everywhere, medics trying to save people who are already gone. Spielberg didn't hold back on showing how bloody and violent it was. A lot of people still call it the most realistic depiction of D-Day ever filmed. The whole movie follows a squad after the landing, but that opening scene is what everyone remembers. Stalingrad was the bloodiest battle of the war. After failing to take Moscow, Germany went after Stalingrad because it was a major industrial city and symbolically important. Both sides committed huge forces. The fighting was insane, block by block, floor by floor in the same buildings. The Germans got stuck in urban warfare, and eventually the Soviets surrounded and destroyed them. Maybe 2 million people died or got wounded in that battle. Enemy at the Gates focuses on a Soviet sniper who becomes this propaganda hero. There's this cat and mouse game between him and a German sniper while the city's being destroyed around them. The movie shows how both sides used individual soldiers' stories for propaganda while hundreds of thousands of people were dying in the streets.